First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to review my application and also taking the time to watch this video. My name is Matt Villa. I am a Redken certified hair colorist, a Redken store educator, and a master stylist at Ulta Beauty in San Antonio, Texas, store 1098. Education truly is my passion, and that's something that I love to give out to people. I love utilizing the things that I've learned through my career with Ulta and my career with Redken and passing it along to my fellow stylists. Today I'm going to take you through and show you a couple of easy tips and tricks to use behind the chair to have maximum impact in half the amount of time. Okay, so for this technique I have Chelsea divided into 4 quadrants, and within those quadrants I took a diagonal back angle through here and created triangles at the top of each section, and those triangles are going to be what we're working in right now. So I'm going to go through and take a slice, no more than ½ an inch thick, just depending on the density of your client's hair. And within that subsection we're going to divide it into manageable sections. By manageable, I just need something that you can handle, so make sure it's not too wide to hold in your hand. So I'm going to divide this into half. And through that section, I'm going to take my fine tooth comb and push up from the mid shaft, just creating a tease. Now, anytime you're doing a teased highlight like this, you want to make sure that you do the least amount of strokes as possible, just to make sure that it's easier for you to get out of the shampoo bowl. Then I take a flat bill clip like that and just secure the base. And then apply my lightener. Today I decided to use up to 7 with 20 volume. And the reason I decided to use up to 7 is because it's the best lightener to make sure that you're getting complete saturation in that section without having to work too hard. So we're just going to get that section completely covered, making sure that we get any dark bits that might be down through that zone too. And since we did that back combing, you don't have to worry too much about creating a blur right there. But if there's any kind of issue that you feel like there might be a hard line, just use the back of your pinky to kind of diffuse that line a bit. So anytime you're worried about creating lines, if you're doing any kind of highlight or balayage, just working in angles like that will really help create softness. So now we're almost done. We're just working our way all the way up that section until we get to that top point of that triangle. So in the back area of her head, I'm working in the same sections within the 2 quadrants, but dividing out a triangle at the top with the diagonal back section. And we're just gonna do some surface painting in these sections, just in these areas where it's just kind of getting browned out through her mid shaft, just to help brighten those up a bit. So I'm just gonna take this section and we're gonna hold it with a little bit of elevation away from the head. And what I'm using today for this is the freehand lightener from Redken with 20 volume and pH blender. And the reason I chose to use the freehand is because it's gonna encapsulate itself and not transfer it to any other section. So it creates a shell on the outside to keep it from drying out. So whenever you're going through and balayaging, it's important to keep in mind that you're gonna be working down when applying the lightener rather than working up. So actually when you work up, you're gonna create more of a gradient and push that color off of the hair rather than applying it to the hair. So what I like to do is kind of create triangles within my section, just very large triangles. This is gonna be a quick just add on just to brighten it up a little bit. So load your brush and just paint, making sure going down with that lightener. And a good way to think about it is like you're icing a cake. So you want to cover it where you don't see much hair peeking through, just to make sure there's complete saturation. It's also important that when you're applying your lightener that you're using the flat surface of your brush rather than the tips, and you're not digging into the hair, to make sure that it's just on the surface and not penetrating to create any bleed marks or anything like that. And when you get towards the ends, we're still gonna just work on the surface of it. So I'm just gonna lay mine on top of my hand and kind of put my brush on top and slide it through. Now that I've rinsed out the glaze, I'm gonna go back through with our pH bonder step 2 before I shampoo. So this is a pre-shampoo treatment just to make sure that your pH is balanced at the end of your service. But if you were in a situation where you're doing like a low light in there or a base color, you can shampoo before just to make sure that none of that color transfers. But just make sure that you're also shampooing after, just to make sure the pH is balanced. The shampoo and conditioner that I decided to use is from the Color Extend line. That's just gonna be, it's gonna have cranberry oil in it, so it's gonna help reflect light a little bit more and give some nice reflect to our final result. Okay, so for this haircut, you work in 4 quadrants. This is called, this is gonna create swelling layers. So it's best for those clients that come in that wanna change but don't really wanna change. So most of the times when you look at like a haircut or long hair, it kind of collapses through here. So this is kind of gonna help counteract that and give you more volume and roundness towards the ends to make your hair look a little bit more, like has a little more volume. So working in the 4 sections, to find your guide, first off, make sure that your section is well saturated. Anytime you're doing a haircut, it's really important to make sure that your saturation is even throughout as you cut. So just continually going through and respraying because the saturation is going to affect the elasticity. So say you do one quadrant wet and the other quadrant's a little bit dry, it's not going to stretch as much as the wet one would. So going through and respraying as you cut, super important. Okay, so to start this, our guide is gonna be this front section right here. This is gonna be the shortest point, and everything is gonna kind of flow back from there. So to find that section, usually when we think about our bang parting, most people think about the corner of your eyebrows, but really it's important to think about head shape. So the best way to find like the front corner of somebody's head is to just take your hands and put it in front, kind of creating a bit of an angle there, and then bend your fingers in, and wherever that meets, that's where that corner of her head is. So this part lives in front and this part lives behind. So that's how you would find that section with your clients. And just part from that middle line down through that point that we just found. So you're gonna clip everything else out of the way, and having this, our guide down, we're gonna just kind of visually look at it, kind of put it where it would naturally live. Don't put too much tension on it. You can put your finger down just to kind of hold it where it would be. And just kind of visually decide how much you want to take off of that front piece right there. So I mean, this is the shortest piece right now already out of her whole haircut. So, I mean, it's not bad. I think just bringing it up about an inch or so. So I'm literally just gonna go through and cut that off like that. Starting to get a little dry already, so I'm gonna make sure she's saturated. So the way to create a swelling layer is now I'll move to the opposite side, lower her down. We're gonna take that same little section, and that's creating a diagonal forward angle right there. Just follow that through. You're gonna stand on this side, make sure that you're getting consistency with the grains of your hair through there, and bring it all towards you. And right now, see, she's a little bit high for me, so I'm kind of pulling everything out. We want everything to be straight out at a horizontal 90 in relation to the room. So just think that you want this to be straight out, not from the head necessarily, but from the room. You want it to be 90 degrees out. So I'm gonna lower her down a little bit just to make sure that I keep that degree of elevation the same. And bring it up. So I'm using my camera right now. At home you would use, or in the salon, you would use your mirror to make sure you're not too high or too low with your elevation. Make sure it's straight out from the head. And then looking from above, that's where you're gonna look for over direction. So you wanna make sure everything is straight towards you and not going in either way too much, because that can also affect your haircut. When you over direct, it's gonna give you weight and length in the opposite direction. So if I'm over directing this way, everything's gonna push back a little bit. If I'm over directing this way, everything's gonna push forward. So super important to keep it out towards you. Okay, so elevation, good. Over direction, good from above. Bring everything out. We're finding that guide we just had. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna think about my finger angle. So I want everything to flow back, so I'm just gonna angle my fingers a little bit towards the back of the head. Now this, you can always customize this with your haircut. If you want your layers to be even all the way through, you can keep your finger angle straight. If you want it to angle forward, you can angle it forward a bit, but I want everything to go back. So I find that guide and just cut. Took off just a bit. So now we'll go through with our next section, following that same angle, diagonal forward that we had before, and just take another section. And in the beginning, you're just gonna take sections that you can manage. And after you get something down like this, you could take it in like 1 or 2 large sections all the way across. But right now, while you're learning, it's just important to take small sections to make sure you can really see that guide. So as you're working, again, look for your degree of elevation from using your mirror. Look from above to make sure you don't have any over direction. Pull out to that guide and angle back. And as we get further down the side of our head, it has further for this hair to travel. So it's gonna take off less of the length as we go. It's not taking, but our length is gonna be way down here. So this is gonna be the last piece we pull through. So you'll notice that it's barely gonna affect. Okay, now using a small piece from that guide from that first section, we're gonna do the same thing, doing our same diagonal forward angle and bring everything across. Moving on to the back quadrant, you're gonna keep your guide this time at the back of that corner. Just another small little triangle right here to help you use as a guide for your back layers. So the same thing, you're gonna make sure that you have consistency with the grain of your hair, make sure it's going all the same direction, it's not buckling or anything. And it's important to keep all these sections like re-clipped as you're working, because you're laying stuff over the top of that section, so you wanna make sure that you're not grabbing something from that you're not supposed to while you're cutting. So everything across over the head towards me. When working with the back sections, it's important to make sure you're standing in front of the ear. Make sure that your chest is in front of the ear. Now just moving on to the last section, we're gonna do the same thing using the small triangle from the previous section at the top, and we're gonna use that as our guide for that last section, following the same diagonal forward angle all the way down. Talking about products, so before I started the haircut, I used our One United 25 with 25 benefits to it, just to act as a cutting lotion, help me detangle a bit. This is gonna be your go-to product for most of your clients. Heat protectants, color protectants, UV protectants, everything in this bottle. And then also using the new All Soft Mega Hydra Mount to help as a cutting lotion. She has a little bit more fine hair, so I use maybe a nickel size amount just through zones 2 and 3 towards the ends. Just to help, and I like to put it in before I start a haircut just to make sure that you're really like combing it through the hair as you work. So I usually do that with any kind of like smoothing products before I start the haircut. Now to finish, I'm gonna go through with my favorite Aerate 08. It's a bodifying cream. It's good for fine hair because it's not gonna add any crunchiness at the root like some root lifters would, and give you more of a pillowy lift throughout. So, just a fingertip of that, rub it all over your hands, just like you're rubbing in lotion when you're rubbing in products, because when you're rubbing your hands through the hair touches all sides. So going through and making sure you're really getting at the scalp and through the crown, all around your face also. And then as you work down through the ends, just getting that excess off. And our pillow-proof blow-dry spray just for added heat protection. It's also gonna help our blowout last a little bit longer and speed up drying time. Now just to go through and add a little bit of internal texture through her hair, so still working in the same 4 quadrants. We're gonna go through and using our reversible thinning shears, or texturizing shears, we're gonna go back through and take some diagonal back sections. And we're going to use the blade part of our shears just to kind of go through, starting in that mid shaft, and just weave a few pieces through. And then you open, close as you work your way out and through, just to get some weight out of your ends. Okay, so now I'm just going through and curling. This is my last section. So what I'm using for this is our Iron Shape 11 heat protectant spray. So each section I'm just gonna mist just a bit, and then I like to take either a comb or a brush and just kind of brush that through. Now for our finishing products, my favorite, Windblown 05, just for some internal texture. I like to kind of grab my sections and spray it internally right at the root. The last thing I use, Outshine, just to help break up the curls, even if you're doing like flat hair just for flyaways. Put it all over your hands, again like lotion, and break it up a bit. Once again, thank you so much for your time and your consideration, and I hope to meet you all soon.